Hello again. Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Tennessee's matchup with Georgia. You can catch this 6:30 Central on ABC. BetOnline has Georgia by 9 with an over-under of 48.5, making for a predicted final score of Georgia 29, Tennessee 20. My model has got the Bulldogs by about 5.5. Let's jump right into the matchup, starting when Tennessee has got the ball. The Vols, of course, coming off a win over Mississippi State. Georgia fell at Ole Miss. Tennessee also lost quarterback Nico Iamaleava for a spell, but we expect him to be back for Georgia as we do this Monday morning. Here are the numbers for the Vols offense. 37.6 points per game on an average of 75 snaps. We know Tennessee wants to go tempo. Turnover rate of 1.8%. Vols will rush at 60% of the time, 5.5 yards per rushing play, 7.5 per passing play. Sacks come off the passing number for an average of 6.3 yards per snap. Georgia giving up 18.4 points a game, a turnover rate of 2.1%, 63 snaps a game against Georgia. Average rush against Georgia, 4.2 yards per carry. Average pass, 5.5 yards. Teams will throw it 51% of the time against the Dogs, and a 7.2% sack rate, whereas the Vols give up 6.6%. I think what you're going to want to see Georgia do is try to make Tennessee pass. You've heard opponents talk about that. Nico Iamaleava's health could be a little bit of an issue. Gaston Moore played okay in relief the other night, but he will not face a defense like he's going to see in this one. No secret what the Vols will want to do. That is run Dylan Sampson against a Georgia defense that's good against the run, but maybe not as elite as some of the Georgia units in the past, Chase.
Yeah, I think for Tennessee, you're right. Dylan Sampson's a key to this game, getting the run game going, get it established, and just pound it at Georgia. You know, I feel like the more they run, the harder they run, the better chance they have at getting through that Georgia defense. And so, yeah, Georgia's going to have to dial something up, which I'm interested to see what they do. And Kirby Smart being the defensive mind that he is, like how do they respond to that? You know, because Dylan Sampson has been the key to Tennessee offensively all season long. I mean, we've seen Nico some really good moments. We've seen him turn the ball over and not be as consistent. But that's one thing for this Tennessee team that they've had all year is consistent play from Dylan Sampson. And so get him going, get him running the ball, and yeah, Georgia's going to try to make Nico throw the ball and put him in some tough situations. He's got the guys to throw to. You know, he's got the talent to make it happen. It's just consistency and not getting rattled. I feel like that's what Georgia can do to him to get him off balance, is get him rattled a little bit, put some pressure on him, make him get out of his comfort zone. And if they can do that and they can shut down the running of Dylan Sampson, those are going to be two key for Georgia defensively, because that's what Tennessee has got to do, is just establish the run game and establish it early.
Yeah, I think the key for Georgia will be getting Tennessee in a passing down on third down. Georgia can get pressure without blitzing a ton of guys. And I think the sack numbers are, I don't know if misleading is the word, but here's what I'm getting at. Georgia can get a lot of pressures that don't show up as sacks. Get Nico off platform. Accuracy has been an issue at times. You know, on the other hand, if you're 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 against them, you got to like Tennessee's chances of converting 3rd and short. So I think that's the thing to watch, is just down and distance constantly when Tennessee's got the ball.
Yeah, that's a good observation, because Georgia's defense has done a good job most of the season of getting teams uncomfortable and then forcing them off the field. Now, this is a kind of a different offense again with a run heavy style that Tennessee is. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Let's talk the other side of the ball. Before we do, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. When Georgia's got the ball, here are the numbers. 30.6 points a game, 67 snaps on average, turnover rate of 2.5%. A lot of that Carson Beck throwing picks recently. Georgia will throw it 58% of the time, 7.1 yards per pass, 4.8 yards per rushing play, and Georgia gives up sacks 4.3% of the time. For Tennessee, the average is on defense. Tennessee, 12.6 points a game, one of the top numbers in the country, just 64 plays, a 2.4% turnover rate. Yards per rushing play, just 3.5 against the Vols. Per passing play, 5 flat. And teams will run it 52% of the time against the Vols. 7.9% sack rate for that defense. This is going to be the strength of Tennessee's team, is going to be that front seven. Tennessee likes to put pressure on teams with James Pearce and a lot of gifted guys. But Georgia's offensive line is one of the best in the country, too. I think that's the matchup to watch. And for Tennessee, it's how do you force Carson Beck into mistakes? And it feels like there's been a lot of those lately.
Yeah, there have been, and a lot of games are won in the trenches, and I think this is going to be one of those. Like, I really like Tennessee's defensive front and the pressure they've been putting on teams. But you're right. I mean, this Georgia offensive line, they hold their own. They get it done, and so to me, it's a really interesting aspect of this game is what Tennessee can do. Do they put a lot of pressure up front to make Carson Beck make mistakes and force him out of his comfort zone? But do they drop some guys back and make him throw picks? So I'm interested to see what Tennessee can do defensively, because Carson Beck is just not what we thought he would be this year. He has looked a lot of there's been a lot of uncomfort, I feel like, when it comes to Georgia offensively. So, how do they handle that? They're back at home for this game, which I think is big for Georgia offensively. But this is where I feel like the game can be won or lost. If Georgia's turning the ball over, if Carson Beck is just uncomfortable, he's throwing picks or fumble it, then that's bad news for Georgia. But if the offensive line is able to give Carson Beck some time and let him do his thing, then I feel like that's the better case for Georgia. But to me, this is where the matchup is played. How can this defensive front pressure Carson Beck, and what can the offensive line do in response to give him time? I think that's how the game's going to be won or lost.
Let's give picks and why. Chase, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it could be a fun game. I feel like, though, Georgia, especially coming off that loss, they're out to prove something. I think Georgia wins this one at home. Tennessee can cause some problems, and I think they are going to make Carson Beck be a little uncomfortable. And I think down the stretch, I think Georgia's the one that could put the points on the board and get the win in Athens.
Yeah, we just gave you the numbers. To me, this is a little bit of a throw the numbers out the window game. Although if Tennessee wins, that turnover number for Georgia might be the one that's the biggest. But I just think, as bad as Carson Beck has been at times, he's been on the stage many times before. Georgia, when it's got its back against the wall, which is rare, you saw what happened in that road trip to Austin. I think Kirby Smart, just as good as it gets at drawing up a defensive game plan. They're going to be playing in Athens in front of a crowd that Kirby Smart has kind of, I think, gotten onto at times for maybe lack of passion. Well, guess what? Georgia hadn't had a lot of time to have its back against the wall in a winner-take-all type of game. I mean, if they lose this one, they may be out of the playoff chase. Just feels to me that so much here, Kirby Smart in these, all right, nobody believes us kind of spots is where he's got his team at its best. And I think that's what we're going to see in Athens Saturday. But either way, can't wait to see it. We'll have you covered afterwards with our post-game show, which usually starts around 9:30 Central. Hit that like button and the subscribe button so you can catch that. We also do baseball and basketball year-round. If you want to advertise, caroline.smith at southeastern14.com is where you direct those. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16, presented by BetOnline.